Hey YouTube, Kevin Cleary with a knife video. I want to start off by saying you guys know that I've been emphasizing fixed blades just a little bit and picking up a few that I was really interested in. And so this is going to be a fixed blade video. This is the Tops Tibo. I want to say one other thing by way of introduction, and that is a few of these fixed blades that I'm talking about, I want you guys to understand a little bit about the process, because you need to understand that these knives, I've taken quite a bit of time and energy before I ever even buy one, okay? Knives that make my list of, hey, I'm interested in owning this, I have quite a process, and there are a lot of knives that I just cross off, I have no interest in. There are a lot of knives that I'm like, yeah, it might be okay, but I'm not going to spend money on it. And then finally, there are a very few that I finally go, yeah, these are knives I'm really interested in checking out, okay? And sometimes I'm totally wrong. Sometimes I get a knife and I just hate it. Other times I get a knife and I'm surprised the opposite way. It's I had a certain plan for it and I thought, this is going to work this way, and it turns out to be more versatile or in some way even better than I thought. Okay, so that happens, all right. But by this point in my collection, I have a pretty good handle on what I like and what I don't like, and on what features I'm going to find appealing and what features don't do much for me. All right, so you guys have seen some videos where I have expressed surprise, but generally speaking, I have a pretty good sense for what I'm getting. So I say all that to say the Tops Tibo made the list after looking at a lot of different Tops knives, after looking at a lot of different small fixed blade knives, and there are a few reasons that it did. One is the size of the handle. You've got almost 4 inches of handle here. One is the edge geometry, and the third one is the jimping. Now, the sheath was kind of a drawback. I would have liked to see this sheath have these same holes on the back side as well. That would also give you a little bit of a thumb ramp, but it works out fine. I'm able to carry this in a way that's still comfortable and easy, and I can extract it no problem. Now, I will say my method of carry for this is somewhat influenced by the sheath design on this, okay? So let's go ahead and get into the review now that I've kind of given you all that by way of introduction. Size and weight on this knife is 6.5 inches overall, okay, 6.5 inches. Basically 2.5 inches of blade, so that leaves you 4.5 inches for the rest. Okay, or I mean 4 inches, I'm sorry, 4 inches for the rest. If you put the sheath on, it now comes to about 7 1/8 inches. So total of 7 1/8 inches. If you're thinking of carrying this, let's say in a pack or in a pocket, that's how much you're dealing with overall. All right, I don't carry it in either one of those configurations, so the overall length is not quite as critical. However, the total weight on this is 3 ounces, 2.9 ounces, and mine is probably 3.5 ounces because of the paracord wrap. Okay, the paracord is not factory. That's something I've done after the fact, and I do really recommend wrapping this knife, but I'll talk about that more when we get to the handle. All right, so what do we got so far? We've got 6.5 inches overall, 2.5 inch blade. By the way, it does have 2.5 inches of cutting edge, 7 1/8 with the sheath. It is 1.9 ounces, just the knife. And again, mine's a little heavier than that because of paracord wrapping. And it's 2.9 ounces with the sheath, okay? I pointed that out, that it's often really hard to find. The same is true of this knife. I had to look high and low to find someone who would say, this is how much the knife weighs with the sheath. Which is super annoying, guys, because is anyone carrying this knife just with the blade out and exposed? No, nobody, because you can't. It's not safe. So everyone is carrying this with a sheath. So if you're a retailer out there and you're watching this, please include the weight with the sheath, because otherwise we have no idea what we're actually getting in terms of weight. Now, it did take me some effort, but I could find a couple places that had the weight down, and it was right. I weighed this before paracord wrap, and it came in at like 3 ounces. So the 2.9 ounce listed on a couple of websites is accurate. So that's size and weight, okay? 6.5 inches, 3 ounces basically, and you can add about, a little less than an ounce for paracord to mine and to yours if you're planning to do a paracord wrap like this one. So let's go on to the blade. All right, one of the things I liked about this knife was the blade. It is 1095 high carbon steel, which is a really good performing steel when you're looking for toughness and durability, and when you're looking for something that's reasonably easy to sharpen in the field. 1095 is not that bad to sharpen. It does take a good edge. It does hold that edge reasonably well. You'll probably find performance similar to, or maybe a little better than, some of the good quality but budget steels like Aussade or 8CR13 MOV or maybe 9CR13. There's a bunch of those. You'll probably find performance somewhere in there. Obviously, it's going to depend a little on the heat treat. This is said to be around 58, 59, which is in keeping with lots of the budget folders that I usually do that are in that 8CR13, 9CR13, that kind of stuff. Okay, so easy to sharpen, holds the edge reasonably well. I will say this is not a stainless steel, so you can get some corrosion on that edge unless you oil it. I usually oil it, or if you're cutting with it regularly, by the way, you're not going to see that. It's only if you get this wet and then kind of leave it, or if it's in a high humidity environment for a long time or something like that. But it can rust a little on that edge. Now the rest of the blade does have this coating on it, and the coating is actually pretty good. I've got a couple other to show you here. This is the Ratmandu from Swamp Rat Knives, and the coating on this is super, super heavy. Like the ridges and stuff are quite large. The Tibo is a little finer than that. One other example that maybe more people are used to, and that would be the SE3. And these two, if you feel the coating, they're actually quite similar. And that's a good thing, because if you remember, I pointed out with the SE3 that it actually slices pretty well, which is important for me. And you're going to get that same kind of performance out of the Tibo, only of course in a considerably smaller length, right? So, closed detailed cutting like this is more what you're doing compared to the SE3. So, blade, I like the edge geometry. I like this belly. Okay, a lot of outdoor knives, especially like the SE Izula, the K-Bar, Beckernecker, a number of others, the drop from here at the tip is more horizontal. Okay, so the belly is more rounded. It's kind of a fatter belly, if that, to use an expression with two meanings. Obviously, it is pushed out more. Okay, this I really like because it's sort of swept back a little more. It's going to allow better penetration for any kind of stabbing or detailed cutting with the tip, but you're still getting lots of usable, functional belly there that you can slice with. Okay, so really, really neat little knife. Nice slicing knife, which is important if you're doing like fine woodworking. It's important if it's going to be your camp knife and you may be doing some food prep with this. So blade, very functional. I have no real complaints about it, except for you see this cutout at the base is quite large. You probably could have made that just a small cutout and gained 1/8 of an inch of blade length or so. All right, so the other thing that would be kind of cool about this is if the actual blade itself was even longer. Like if you put a 3-inch blade or 3.5-inch blade on this, you'd have something like that, and it would still be, you could leave it just as it is and just increase the blade length, and I think you'd have a pretty good, pretty useful tool as well. So the drawback there is what I'm saying is a bit of a negative is I'd like to see slightly more blade here. Even up to 3 or 3.5 inches would probably work well. Okay, now you might move it out of the category of neck knife and make it into more of an EDC blade, and that's what I use it for anyway. Okay, so that's the blade. What about the handle? Well, the handle on this, of course, comes just as metal. Okay, it's a skeletonized metal handle, and that's just to keep the weight down. All right, there are no, at least that I could find, aftermarket scales of any kind for this. It's paracord wrap or metal, or those are basically your two options. I went with paracord wrap after I did use this for a few days, almost a week, without wrapping it so that I could at least comment to you. And it works fine, especially if you're really, really concerned about weight. I wasn't all that concerned since it's a fairly lightweight knife anyway. I prefer comfort, and so I did put a paracord wrap on it. And with the paracord wrap, it's actually very comfortable. I really like the ergonomics on this, especially after wrapping it. Before it was a little rough on your hands, but I don't see you using a knife like this for hard use cutting task for 3 hours or something. If you did, I would say, maybe go with an SC3 or even something else, something bigger with a more comfortable handle, maybe your Mora knife or whatever. All right, so the handle is quite comfortable. It does take a paracord wrap pretty easily. The jimping is quite aggressive, both here on the back spine and in this choil. Now, when you paracord wrap it, you do cover up some of that jimping. I have not noticed any significant difference in grip because paracord wrapping is actually pretty grippy anyway. So handle, yes, comfortable, and notice I can get basically a full 4-finger grip. There is a little bit of the fat of my palm that's extending beyond the pommel of the knife, which is not ideal, but it hasn't affected my using the knife anyway, because the blade size here, it's not like we've got a great big hulking knife that we're going to start chopping with or something, right? So having only, an almost full 4-finger grip is fine. That's the handle. What about the sheath? That's the thing we need to speak to next. Now, the sheath is very simple, very minimal, just a taco style sheath. It is Kydex. It does retain really well, and of the small neck knives I have, this one has no play at all, just quiet as can be, which is really nice. Now, what I do wish, and I think I mentioned this before, is that these holes were on both sides. So this is a taco style sheath. I wish it wasn't. I wish it was folded here at the tip and put rivets on both sides. It just gives me a little more freedom to carry this knife the way I want to carry it. Now, you could very simply tie paracord through here, put it on a belt, right? So if you just took this paracord like this, put it through there, created yourself a little loop there, you could easily put this on a belt. You could tie it to any kind of pack. So all of that works fine. Of course, it is designed as a neck knife, which is why there's these 2 holes. The idea would be that you put a thread through there, hang it from your neck. Too big and too heavy for my preferences. Maybe it wouldn't bother you at all. The sheath does retain the blade really well. It is really good and solid, but I just wish it had a little more by way of carry versatility in carry options, okay? Now, the way I carry this knife is to steal Lucas Burnley's pattern from CRKT. If you remember the CRKT Obaki, he said put a lanyard on it, loop the lanyard around your belt loop, which is what I do. Put this in your pocket, or a kidney carry, or sometimes on the pants I'm wearing today, they have like one of those little change pockets, or a watch pocket, I'm sorry, and I'll actually tuck this in, and it goes in about this far into the watch pocket. It makes it easily accessible, and one advantage of doing this little method is you're not going to lose your knife, because if it did fall out of your pocket, it would just hang there by the lanyard. You'd notice it right away and put it back in. So that's how I carry this knife, and I actually really like this method. I carry a lot of smaller fixed blades this way. Let me give you a little bit of a comparison on size. Normally I do that when I do size and weight, but I kind of forgot. So now that we're done the sheath is good. I just wish it had a little more versatility in terms of how I could attach this to my person, but it works well for me in the configuration that I have it here with the lanyard on it. Now, let's give you a couple of comparisons. Here's what I would consider more of a full-size EDC knife, the SE3. And this knife, oh yeah, let me tell you one more thing about the sheath. Hold on. There is a ramp right here, okay? And so you may be tempted to push on that to open the knife. Let me tell you, it's a bad idea, because when your thumb slips forward, guess where it's going to go? Right onto the blade, okay? Now, I didn't do that, but I did look at this and think, hey, I wonder if I could just push it off this way. And I pushed on it, and I was like, whoa, don't do that, because if it comes off, you're going to cut yourself, okay? So I always just grab the sheath and pull it out, okay? I never, there's no thumb ramp, and that is a drawback to this sheath. All right, now let's get to size comparison. So here is the Tops Tibo compared to the SE3. Now the SE3 is what I consider, sort of an EDC size knife. This I would consider a secondary knife. And you could actually carry these together if you wanted to have the option of not pulling this out maybe in public. You could carry this along with it and use this for opening your mail and your smaller stuff. And then if you had a bigger task, maybe you were cutting fruit or whatever, you would still have the option of a larger knife with you. The one other comparison that I want to make is to the Minimalist. Okay, this is marketed again as a neck knife, and if you compare this to the CRKT Minimalist, you can see the difference. And now you see why I say this is pretty big to be called a neck knife. There's a lot of metal here, there's a lot of weight here. This is more carryable. Now I'll tell you this, okay, I don't even like this around my neck, and I've tried it, and I am continuing to try it because I'm trying to see if I can convince myself, but I just, every time I do it, I go a couple days and I'm like, no, get this thing off me, you know? That's how it compares to the Minimalist. And so you should have a good, this is a very popular knife. So if you've got one of these, you kind of know now what you're getting into. So overall, I think this is a really, really handy little knife. The edge geometry is good enough, and the comfort is good enough. You could definitely EDC this knife. If you want something a little bigger, you could, Tops does have a couple of blades that are slightly bigger than this, but you're probably looking at going up to like an SE3 or something in that size range. If you think this is okay, then hey, good on you. Then you could EDC this knife, no problem. Now for me, it's a little too small. I'd like to have something a little bigger with me, and so usually I carry this as a secondary. Okay, so I'll carry this in a back pocket or something else where it's a small knife that I've got with me if I need to do regular or cutting chores. And then if I want something bigger, you know, today, for example, since I was going to be reviewing this, I carried this and paired it up with my Recon 1. And you can see, right, this is much more knife, and it's, you know, you're going to get a lot more done with the Recon 1 than you would with this guy. And so for that reason, I see this as like a secondary blade. You could certainly carry it if you're a, you know, mountain climber or a minimalist backpacker where you're really trying to get that weight down to as low as humanly possible. This would be a great option for that. The other thing this would be great for is on a larger survival knife. The only one I have with me is the Ratman, so it's going to be our example. But you could take this and attach it to here so that now you got a small knife and a larger knife, and then depending on what you got to do, you know, if you're doing like fine wood processing, then go with this. If you need something heavier to do chopping or, you know, process an animal or something, then you've got something larger. Okay, so that's my take overall on this knife. Great little blade. I really enjoy having it, and I actually carry it quite a bit. Would I say I carry this more than my other fixed blades? Yeah, I carry it a lot. Okay, let's just put it that way. I will try to indicate, I'll do some comparisons down the road once I've reviewed all of these blades, and once I've put some time and energy into using this and the Izula more, and a few other blades that you guys have already seen that I have because I did the fixed blade for EDC. Once I've got a few others, and once I get used to them and I get a feel for it, I will do some comparisons to kind of let you guys know what carries well and what doesn't, and where I come down in terms of my actual preferences for which fixed blade I like the most. Okay, but for this knife, I will say very comfortable to carry, very useful, durable steel, good edge retention, good, you know, there's no major flaw in this other than the sheath. I wish it had the other side. Okay, so there you go, great little knife, tons of good uses for it, and so overall I would definitely recommend the Tops Tibo. We'll talk to you later, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video.